Hi, this is Christina Fior, author of the Venus Dialogues, and I'm here with Barbara Bartolome, who is a historian for the Santa Barbara Genealogical Society, and she is also a director of a group called IANS, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. And I wanted to just welcome you to my Venus Dialogues magazine and an effort to uncover what you have discovered with genealogy. And I, as an intuitive healer who works with people's ancestral wounds and ancestral beliefs, as well as their current life wounds and beliefs, find it very valuable to discover what the historical reference point is that causes people to behave and act and feel the way they do beyond the experiences that they have in this life. So I wanted to ask if you could speak to that. First of all, tell me a little bit about your background as a historian.
Well, I've been with the Genealogical Society for about 12 years, and the way that I came to the society was that I had gone on a family trip with my husband and my two young children up to Canada, and I arrived at a city and we were at the historical museum there, and I happened to mention to one of the guides that I thought that my ancestor happened to be from that city and I would love to check that out. And the guide didn't know that the background on me was that my parents had divorced when I was 12, and neither parent had talked about the history of their family. The divorced family just didn't, it just was a wound for me. And I didn't hear anything about, who my grandparents were and what previous generations had done. And so that had always been a hole in my life, and it just so happened that that day when I mentioned that to the guide in the historical museum, she took me upstairs to the Genealogical Society, and they proceeded to look up the name that I knew that this ancestor had had. It was an interesting name that I'd remembered someone had mentioned, and it turned out that he was a founding father of the city that we were in. And they had so much information on him. So it totally turned me on to genealogy, but it also helped me to eventually heal the wound that had happened from my parents' divorce.
Just by feeling a connection with your roots.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Found that connection and feel that I have this beautiful family that I'm connected to, even though there was a disconnect in my parents' generation.
Lovely. Beautiful. So, segueing into the other aspect of your life, I understand that you had a past life experience.
Well,
and what did that mean to you in your sense of self-discovery?
Well, it's actually a near-death experience, and it was a situation where I died in a medical facility here in Santa Barbara, and it ended up being a situation where it gave me a lot of insight into my life and also opened the door to me to understand past lives. It was a huge growth experience for me, and it was an amazing process as well.
So can you tell me a little bit about the near-death experience that you had?
Yeah, I was in a hospital and I was having a routine test prior to back surgery, and the test went wrong. And I ended up dying and going up on the ceiling and was resuscitated after about 5 to 7 minutes. And while I was up on the ceiling, I heard and saw everything that was being done to resuscitate me. And so when I came back into my body again after the resuscitation was positive, I ended up telling the whole room what they had said and done while I was dead. And
hopefully they said all good things about you.
It was very shocking to them. They were very alarmed at the fact that I was able to see what they said and did, and very clearly be able to quote them while I was dead. So it was an amazing experience, and I lead this group to help other people because of my situation in that hospital. The doctors and the medical personnel refused to answer questions for me, and it was back in 1987 before online searches were possible, and I didn't even have a term to use. I didn't know what near-death experience was, and so it took me a long time. It took me 10 years of having it internalized where I didn't actually think about it, and then once it did come out, it took a number of years to integrate it into my life. But now that I have and I understand it much more, I realized how healing that was for me as well. And so my group here in Santa Barbara does everything we can to help people who've either faced near-death experiences or are facing death or have lost a loved one, and help connect them to people who can explain death and the afterlife a little bit easier because they've been there.
It's amazing how something so profound can be so isolating because people are afraid.
Absolutely.
They're afraid of what they don't understand. And so subsequently for you, in your case, you had to bury that just in order to appease other people.
Right, exactly.
So once you were able to have the support that you needed in rediscovering what you buried in the subconscious, how did that feel for you?
Amazingly life-changing. I realized that it's not an accumulation of things or your ego of what you do in life and how much you're educated or anything else you can attain. It's all completely about how you connect and support the people that are in the circle of your life, your friends, your family, the people you come in contact with. It's all about how you give to others and how you can help others in their moments of life as well, how much you give of your heart and yourself. It's all
well,
about
and the beauty is that you realize that you first had to give that to yourself. You had to give yourself permission to really acknowledge and celebrate that you had a very profound experience.
Absolutely.
And with that, it sounds like you were able to give more of yourself.
Exactly.
And what you came in with, what those rich experiences were. So I really celebrate you for that, for being bold and making that discovery for yourself.
Those experiences opened up doors. It was amazing.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Do you want to give the website to the people that are watching this video?
Yeah, IAN's website is www.iands.org.
Great. Barbara, thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Christina. I'll just freeze there for a second.